Good evening, all. Glad we can be together again tonight for our third and final summer informational meeting for Salem Creek Academy. I'll read for you tonight from Deuteronomy chapter 6. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 to 9. Now, these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which the Lord your God commanded to teach you, that you might do them in the land whither you go to possess it, that thou mightest fear the Lord thy God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I commanded thee, thou and thy son's son, all the days of thy life, and that thy days may be prolonged. Hear therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with thee, and that ye may increase mightily, as the Lord God of thy fathers hath promised thee, in the land that floweth with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the posts of thy house and on thy gates. If you attend the most conservative Christian churches in our day, it is likely that most, if not all, the families with young children are instructing them not in public school, not in Christian school, but almost entirely at home. This fact is notable and worth discussing here because of our intent to open a homeschool cooperative. I do not intend to explain the history of how this came to be, but it will be useful for our purposes to discuss its meaning. And following on that, second, its promises, third, its perils, then to draw a conclusion as to how our homeschool cooperative intends to embrace the promises of homeschooling and to flee its perils. So first, the meaning of homeschool in three aspects. One regards the teachers, or we can say, in all honesty, in most cases, the teacher. Dad may help, and he may be, on paper, the principal. But in most cases, it is mom, who loves her children dearly and works hard for them. But she is tasked with all domestic duties, from diapers to dishes. And in our age of egalitarianism and inflation, she cannot obtain reliable, affordable domestic help. She's often the mother to multiple children of various ages and needs, including children not school age, needing constant supervision. She's a mom who, being a woman, is the weaker vessel. And being a housewife, and ideally having been married young, has not pursued higher education or had experience in a professional career in the man's world of trade, business, and leadership. Thus, the teachers. Homeschool also means, regarding the curriculum, that in it, it's not as if mom is entirely on her own. Dad may help and plan or teach a course or two. And both mom or dad, of course, use others' work and books, packaged curriculums, online courses, and at times private tutoring and classes a la carte from local schools. However, the difference from traditional school curriculums is notable. The homeschool curriculum is entirely at the choice of parents, again, usually mom. Expert teachers may have written the textbooks, but those textbooks are usually chosen by the parents at their own discretion, with little guidance from the church or other families, and with minimal requirements from the state. Let's consider as well the aspect of classmates in homeschool. They are your brothers and your sisters. There's occasional time spent with other kids at church, at co-op, at sports. But the homeschooling student has no classmates, at least regularly, outside his family. So that helps paint the picture of what it means to be in homeschool. Let's consider now, second, the promises of such homeschooling. And there are four. The first is the promise of holiness. Kept from wicked public schools, compromised Christian schools, and thus from soul-destroying errors, impure doctrine and worship, and as regards fellow students, from evil communications which corrupt good manners. 1 Corinthians 15:33, the homeschool student is blessed. For many families, homeschooling is the right way to heed Proverbs 13:20. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools should be destroyed. For naturally we can and ought to exercise as parents care over our own teaching and to maintain high spiritual standards in our own home. And especially in this evil day, it is hard to count on other families, even professed Christians, to do the same. A second promise after holiness is affection. In our age marked by lack of natural affection, the closeness and warmth of homeschooling that it cultivates in families is admirable and useful. I have seen notable strength and love in homeschooled families, and especially in homeschooling mothers. This affection is most natural and most useful for education. A mother's natural love for her children is a great help in teaching them and in the patience needed to be successful in that teaching. The best teacher besides mom will be like a father to his students, but he will not be, much less replace, their father or their mother. And in that respect of natural affection, homeschooling does have an advantage over other forms. A third advantage, a promise of homeschooling, is that of adaptation. The homeschool parents, knowing their children well, can adapt each course well to the individual needs of each student. Thus, homeschooling shares in the benefits of private tutoring and has an advantage over the classroom, especially the large classroom, which by its nature has to aim instruction at the middle of the student's ability. And this can harm the very bright or the very dull. A fourth promise of homeschooling, after affection and adaptation, is that of opportunity. I read in Deuteronomy 6. I do not think this text proves that all should be in homeschool, but it does prove one of the advantages of homeschooling, because parents, especially mothers, in homeschool are with their children more than in school, and thus they have the opportunity to obey God, according to verse 7. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. When used well, this opportunity provides remarkable spiritual blessing for both children and parents. So thus, the promises of homeschooling. We have holiness, affection, adaptation, and opportunity. But now we come to the perils of homeschooling, that is, the dangers. And this in 5 points, all beginning with the letter I. The first is ignorance. Ignorance first in teachers It is too much to expect mom to be an expert in all subjects. And it's simple honesty to say her lack of expertise in a subject is not a help to her in teaching it. I am a Latin teacher, and I've seen moms labor to teach Latin, though they don't know Latin. Now, except in rare cases, that goes about as well as you'd expect. It should be common sense to say, you can't teach what you don't know. And mom does not know everything, including sometimes some things that their children need to know. There's a peril of ignorance in students as well. In the homeschool, it's hard to expect that they will ever excel their parents in knowledge. Indeed, without great effort, they are likely to do worse than their parents in knowledge and in the fruits of knowledge. I grieve, for example, to see the wives of ministers, doctors, and other skilled professionals homeschool their boys who then go on to skip college and be plumbers. It's a fine career in itself to be a plumber. But for such boys, it's a waste of intellectual potential and a squandering of a noble heritage. I would add that advantage of adaptation we considered, how homeschool can be fit to each student's need, is only true to some degree. Those who are very bright are hard to serve well in homeschool because they're easily not given proper rigor. The smart ones are left basically to teach themselves. And in this way, again, their potential's wasted. In a school, they'd have a gifted program, or they just skip a grade. But in homeschool, they are left to themselves, yet successful self-education is rare. And even those who do it well would benefit from teachers who are more learned than themselves. But if that's not true of mom and dad, then the most self-motivated homeschool student even will suffer somewhat. So the first peril is ignorance. The second peril of homeschooling is idleness. Teaching in the comfort of the home tempts us to abuse that comfort. It's easy at home to start your school at 10 a.m. Many days just to give 1 or 2 hours to instruction and to do it all in your pajamas. Yes, you can likely get away with this at home. You can likely still pass standardized tests, and perhaps your boys will still get into college. But I'd ask, is this the best way to teach our children to devote themselves to studies? Is it the best way to teach them the value of an education? Or is it the best way to develop the skill of hard, diligent work for the rest of their life, even beyond school? I think not. Homeschool suffers here from lack of competition. The public schools and many private and Christian schools have fallen to very low standards. The bar is low, so it is easy to think we're doing well, when really we're just not doing quite as badly as the worst. Such satisfaction with low standards is the death of seriousness and cultivates a laziness in learning that, sadly, tends to follow students all their life. So the second peril is ignorance. The third peril is isolation. Homeschool students are isolated from a variety of teachers. You may have the best homeschool mom of all, but she's just one. Or with dad, just two. School students have a wide variety of teachers, usually more than one each year, and they change every year. This brings a richness to instruction that is hard to beat at home. Isolation also from peers is a danger. Now, many people use this as their chief argument against homeschooling. They say, what about socialization? Well, this argument can be exaggerated. We have met plenty of highly awkward public school students. But it's not to be entirely dismissed. Peers, friends your age, are important, and we learn much from them. And so to have only rare experience with peers, at least good peers, is quite a loss. Especially for boys, the danger here is isolation from the world of men. Depending on the number and order of siblings, boys in homeschool will likely lack wholesome influence like that of good bullying, of wholesome mockery for their tics and foibles and idiosyncrasies. Mom cannot do that well, and dad often fails in it. Even more so, homeschool boys can suffer isolation from male teachers who would join their dad in giving solid instruction, masculine example, and sober correction. I have met many homeschool boys whom I thought, frankly, were effeminate. This is a present danger when your sole educator is your mother, and when your learning happens in the home and at the kitchen table with sisters and babies round about. An education given by the domestic parent in the domestic sphere is likely to produce domestic men. This is the last thing our world needs today. So third, isolation is a peril of homeschooling. The fourth is inconsistency. In homeschooling, it is impossible to keep consistently high standards, especially when you compare family with family. For in many families, students lack educated parents. In many families, even in the church, students lack godly parents. But also, it's unreasonable to expect that even godly, educated parents are all capable teachers. They may have plenty of knowledge, but not much ability to pass it on. These disadvantages can leave many behind, leaving many children, even in one church, even in the same church, at a distinct loss educationally. Compare by contrast a group I've mentioned to you before, the Dutch immigrants in Canada. Nearly all their children go to the same Christian school. This probably hurts some of the brighter students. But for the majority, it gives them a better and at least a more consistent education than their parents could give them alone. It thus raises the educational baseline for the whole community, with great consequent benefits for both families and churches. Homeschooling lacks this, and thus many students are liable to fall through the cracks. Thus, fourth, inconsistency. And fifth and finally, among the perils of homeschooling is indifference. Here I must say, we do not lament enough the loss of Christian public schools. I don't mean just the Christian part, but also the public part. It is a wholesome thing when many children in a town, a city, a neighborhood go to the same local school. This, at least ideally, knits their hearts together and joins them in shared pride in their place and shared devotion to its good. The absence of such common experience is quite a loss, and its recovery on the right terms would be a great gain. Homeschooling, as a necessary stopgap measure against the anti-Christian corruption of the public schools, is not itself to blame for this loss. But neither is it well equipped to solve the problem on its own. It is not apt by nature to cultivate a public spirit. Not regularly seeing peers, not joining busloads of them every day in class, not being forged together in one body through shared teachers, tests, field trips, band concerts, sports. The homeschool student can forget he even has a city, town, or neighborhood. He may learn to love his family well, but he is prone to wither and is loved for his extended kin, his people, and his place. He's likely to become indifferent to the public good, and therefore likely not to graduate as a proud citizen of America, of North Carolina, of his own town, and likely therefore not to labor for their civic or their social good. Not to mention, the homeschool student is less likely to care for the immortal souls of these places as well. He might be happy that his education has prevented him from enduring too much pressure to evangelize his neighbors. Add to this that homeschooling is a fruit of persecution. The wicked captured the public schools. And as sincere Christians could have their children taught all day, could not bear to have their children taught all day by unbelief, in the capturing of our schools, the wicked drove us out of them. Homeschooling is a sort of ghetto into which our families have been forced. This is a fact, like it or not. But with this fact, we need to face the sore temptation that comes with it, namely, the temptation to enjoy the ghetto, to find it comfortable, and to refuse the burden, nay, the duty to break out of it and to reconquer our nation for Christ and righteousness. If I may speak the truth in love, this may be homeschooling's greatest peril. It is inclined to be inimical to Christian social influence, to Christian government, to wholesome Christian nationalism. If we do not take heed, then in caring for our family's good, we will ignore that of our city, state, and nation. To a true Christian, who should always be a patriot and lover of his people, this should be unacceptable. So, the 5 perils of homeschooling, the 5th of which is indifference. This brings me to the conclusion. We advertise these perils not to call all homeschooling to cease. For many families, there is no better option. But we are frank about its perils so that if your family chooses this option, it may take heed to carefully avoid them. But we'd like to offer more than just a speech about these things. As you have seen, we are establishing for local homeschool families a homeschool cooperative, one morning a week, beginning, the Lord willing, on September 2nd. In our endeavor to begin it well, we resolve to embrace the promises of homeschooling while fleeing its perils, and to help our families do the same. We intend to do this in 8 ways. First, by insisting on firm standards of holiness and truth. I, as the principal, will personally ensure that as to religion and morality, whether the teaching is done by myself or by another, it will be held to the same high standards that we hold within our church. In other fields of learning, we will not allow anything to be taught that contradicts the Bible. We will consider and learn about unbelieving thought, but we will do so bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. 2 Corinthians 10:5. Second, we'll do it by providing quality professional instruction. We have, by God's kindness, 2 godly men with solid liberal arts education, master's degrees, and experience in school teaching. If we had other teachers in the future, we will expect them also to be highly qualified. You'll note that we charge $150 per month per family for the homeschool cooperative. This is higher than other co-ops, but this is the main reason we believe the price is right. Good teachers must be paid a decent rate. And if we're honest, with the low enrollment that we now have in our small beginning, we will certainly be teaching at a discount. Third, by requiring discipline and rigor. We will offer a nursery and preschool program still to be developed. But for the children who are school-aged, the classroom will not be a babysit. And though we will have physical education and singing and take delight in all our learning, our classes will not be for entertainment, but for education. We will expect students to labor, and we'll make sure that they do so. We will give homework and expect it to be done. We will give tests and grades, and we do not promise in advance that everyone will pass or that all who pass will get all A's and B's. We will not require students, of course, to exceed their natural capacities. But within those capacities, we will require them to make clear progress, even when progress is purchased at the cost of pain, as it often is. Out of love for our students, we can do nothing less. Fourth, we will do this by opposing egalitarianism. We do not assume, nor will we treat all our students as equals. We're happy that some are brighter, some are stronger, and we will shape our education accordingly. We also recognize that boys and girls are not the same, and therefore we will not teach them the same, and certainly not with the same future in mind. We want our Christian girls to be mothers in Israel, devoted to domestic life, to serving husband and children, while we intend to send our boys into the world to eat their bread by the sweat of their face and to be bold public warriors for Christ. Fifth, by cultivating godly fellowship. Though we cannot insist all students demonstrate conversion, we will keep high spiritual and moral standards, not allowing any child to enroll whom we think would be a harm to others' character. Moreover, we will teach and model courtesy, respect, and love for one another, taking care to produce an environment well suited to the development of solid Christian friendships. Sixth, by offering homeschool parents fellowship and counsel. No man is an island, and no family is either. We need each other's help, correction, and encouragement. And seeing each other weekly when our children come to co-op will be a welcome opportunity for that. Also, the co-op teachers will be happy to advise you in your home instruction on the other days of the week. And homework from the co-op classes will help provide some structure to your home curriculum. We will do this, of course, with respect for your parental authority and freedom, not to replace your homeschool education, but rather to assist it. Seventh, by building toward establishing day schools. In September, we'll establish another school together with our homeschool co-op, our boys' school. It will not be for all students. It will not even be for all the boys. But co-op will be a good place to test boys' gifts, to see if they might be suitable for the increased rigor of the boys' school. In future years, this could give birth to other schools, perhaps a co-ed Christian day school like the Dutch have. We would need more families and resources, of course, before that could happen. But it seems a solid cooperative could be a small beginning that could grow into a larger institution. Eighth and finally, we will keep in mind the public good. You who know me know my heart for my fellow Americans, as well as my love for my people and my state. I would endeavor to stir up that love in all our students also, by my teaching, by my example, and I hope by our students' own activities. We are still planning our field trips, but I imagine we'll have hikes to show the beauty of our state. Events like concerts at which we'll see the local public and be seen by them, dressed to impress. Perhaps we'll even enjoy times of direct political engagement like protests and attending city council meetings. And though we'll not reform our nation in a day, in co-op we will inculcate the vision for the national reform we need. And we will labor that our daughters and our sons, as mothers and as working men, some of those men we pray as ministers and magistrates, will do all that they can to work for that reform in their own life, such that fleeing the perils of homeschooling and embracing all its promises, blessings would flow, not merely to ourselves, but through us to our people and the public good. Thank you.